Welcome to Elevate Louisiana Engage podcast. Elevate Louisiana was founded earlier this year to empower women leaders throughout Louisiana by connecting and educating them on the challenges impacting our state with data-driven, nonpartisan solutions to make a better future for Louisiana. Hello, I'm your host, Julie Stokes. Today we are recording our last videocast in a 4-part series on the state of higher education in Louisiana. These 4 videocasts are a prologue to an interactive webinar on August 28th between the members of Elevate Louisiana and our 4 speakers. Elevate's August 28th webinar will be a forum where our members will discuss Louisiana's higher education policies with the policy makers themselves so that our civic leaders can get more engaged in building a better future for our state. Our guest today is Commissioner Kim Hunter-Reid, who serves as Louisiana's Commissioner of Higher Education. She is the only female in the country currently serving as a higher education leader who has also led higher education in another state. Working with the Louisiana Board of Regents, Commissioner Reid's leading the state's efforts to increase educational attainment by developing its talent base, resulting in a more prosperous Louisiana that seeds innovation, grows opportunity, and secures a bright economic future. Born and raised in the Lake Charles area, Commissioner Reid has extensive higher education and government experience, serving as the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Education, as well as serving in President Barack Obama's administration as Deputy Undersecretary at the U.S. Department of Education, and leading the White House initiative on historically Black colleges and universities. Welcome, Commissioner Reid.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Well, we're very excited to have you on today. And I was so impressed with your background and your history, and so glad to see that you're a Louisiana native, and we're so happy to have you home.
Oh, it's so great to be home and to really focus on making Louisiana better and better. And, you know, we have deep roots in Louisiana, so it's always special to come back home.
Exactly. Well, I know what's on everybody's mind right now. You know, it's the reopening of our college campuses and how to keep our students safe. What assurances are you giving to parents that colleges and universities are safe settings this year?
You know, Julia, I mean, everything has changed when it comes to thinking about education for our students. I am the mother of a college student as well, so I want parents to know that this is top of mind with me also. Our colleges and universities are working very hard to make sure we can pair up education with safety first. So what you will see on campuses obviously will be a hybrid approach across Louisiana. Students have the opportunity to go to class online, they can go in person, they can do a little bit of both, but they will be required to wear a mask. We will encourage social distancing. There will be floor signage, lots of personal hygiene, cleaning, encouraging temperature checks, all of those things. At the end of the day, obviously, we want to make sure that every student has an opportunity to continue their education and training, because we know that's so very important, but we will do that in a way that prioritizes student safety.
Yeah, I also am the mother of someone starting college this year, and he's going to Tulane, but I'm really impressed with all the thought that our higher education, universities and colleges are putting into this, because it's really important for me, I kind of like the social distancing a little. I mean, I love being able to stay at home with my kids a little bit more. But when you're a college age kid, I can't imagine that there's any part of that that's that cool. So
yes, I was in that conversation with my daughter, and she said, "Mom, I've been home 5 months." And I said, "I wish you were back another 5." But they're ready, right? They're ready to go back. And so I get that. But I just want to keep, all the parents are encouraging the students, right? Make sure you're focused on your safety. Don't take it for granted. Do not take it for granted.
Yeah, that's right. Well, with the experience of delivering all college courses online in the spring and summer, and now looking at these hybrid plans that have in-person and online delivery models, what's the state learned in terms of online learning? Will we see more of it?
We absolutely will see more of it, and we've learned a lot. One, we know that we had to, in 2 weeks, basically get everybody in Louisiana online. that worked okay for students who had technology, right? So one thing, the premise was everybody could go online, and we know that everyone couldn't. So we've learned about the digital divide, much more information about who has and who does not have access to a device, who has access to the internet or both. So we saw libraries partnering with institutions so students could park and study. We had students who were using their cell phones and taking photos and sending their pictures of their homework in to faculty. Faculty were calling, many campuses stood up call centers to check on students to say, what can we do to help? How do we take care of you? And so students persisted. It was not perfect, but we certainly have learned that we have to improve. One area, as I mentioned, is more access to devices and technology. Congress has provided funding for institutions through the CARES Act. The governor has provided $4.5 million to institutions through emergency funds. So we're purchasing devices, we're purchasing hotspots that will help, and it'll be a necessity moving forward, not a luxury, because I think we'll continue to lean into remote learning. The other thing we learned was that we need more support for our faculty. And so the governor provided $500,000, and all of our systems have done training for faculty on remote learning and how to improve the process, to improve the learning. So that was important for us to do as well. And then we also found with the community colleges and some of our four-year institutions that there are courses, whether it's labs, welding, hands-on experiences, where we just had to wait until we were in a phase that would allow a 9-to-1 ratio with students to faculty so that they could do those hands-on experiences with social distancing and all the health protocols. So, it's all about continuous improvement. It's about keeping the learning moving. It's also, I think, Julie, about thinking about how do we disrupt the status quo permanently? How do we innovate in a way that allows us to get better at what we do? So we triage the emergency, we learn, we continue to grow. But at the end of the day, I would like to make sure that we're harvesting the best ideas to really innovate moving forward. I would also give great shout out to the health science centers. We know that they have done amazing work. All of the campuses have had testing and support on many of the campuses rather. And at the end of the day, we know that higher education will be part of this solution when it comes to therapies, when it comes to vaccine, when it comes to research. So I really want to express appreciation for that as well. And we kept learning moving. We graduated almost 5,000 healthcare professionals through this pandemic. When the governor said support the healthcare surge, campuses found a way to keep students moving forward, whether they were respiratory therapists, nurses, pharmacists, all of them continued and graduated. Some of them graduated early, but they graduated on time at least. And I think that too is a testament to the resilience of the faculty and staff.
In a lot of ways, I mean, especially with the research end of it, it really is an exciting time to be in higher ed, but it's also a little
Yes.
too exciting of a time.
Right, absolutely. So many
I
challenges, so many
Yeah.
challenges.
Well, and one of the things you touched on early in what you said was broadband and broadband access for everyone. And
Yes.
I really, until this happened, never really understood the depth of the rural broadband and really not just rural, but here in Jefferson Parish, only 50% of our kids have access to broadband. And it was a problem with restarting school, in the spring. That's one of the things that I can imagine us kind of really trying to work on. How much did that impact you?
It certainly did impact us a great deal. As I mentioned, if your go-to for continuing education is remote learning, then everyone has to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so, people found a way, but it does, I think, put a spotlight on a challenge that really has to be solved.
Yep.
Access to broadband has to be like lights and water. It has to be a basic service across this country, no matter where you live. And so if we think about, are there any silver linings in this terrible pandemic? I hope solving the digital divide will be one where we look back and say, we got better, we got much better. And we
Yeah.
did not have haves and have-nots as a result because people leaned into it and found solutions.
Yeah, because the only way to lift our state into a better position is to lift more of its residents into a better position. And that
No
the
doubt.
best way to do that is education. And you need to be remote ready, apparently.
That's
We
right.
never knew that would happen, but here we are. So at any rate, I know before COVID that Regents had a really robust master plan and then an attainment goal that it was working towards.
Right.
I think that you have brought a slideshow that we can talk a little bit about how that's going to work and what you're thinking about talent development now in the age of COVID. Is it
Sure.
time for
Happy.
me to?
Yes, if you cue up the slide, I am more than always happy to talk about our master plan work and the goal. And thank you for mentioning the Board of Regents. I have a phenomenal board. We've worked with the systems, with our public and private institutions, to set an attainment goal last year, just a year ago, to set a goal that 85,000 credentials would be needed by 2030. What we found from research was that we know that more and more jobs will require something beyond high school, something of value. So we want to make sure that 60% of our population does have that credential by 2030. We think that is tremendously important in a knowledge economy. And so we're focused on that, and we're focused on all of the student success and the policies and practices to allow us to get there. So our Louisiana Prospers, as you see at the bottom, is the name of our strategic plan as we focus on talent development. The next slide speaks a little bit to where we are in the challenge. So currently 45% of the Louisiana residents have something beyond high school, a credential beyond high school. Nationally, it's 48%. So we're lagging, not leading in that space. We know, as mentioned in the slide, that the Georgetown Center has said this year 56% of the jobs will require something beyond high school, and this was pre-COVID statistics. We know that many people have been displaced, but when we've had recessions in the past, individuals who had more education and training were more recession-proof than others. So we know that we have to move this forward urgently. Pre-COVID, Julie, about 48% of our working population had a high school diploma or less as their highest credential. So we have much, much work to do, urgent work to do, to make sure that more people have the education and training that allows them to participate in this knowledge economy, that allows them to have meaningful jobs and careers and opportunities. And as you see, by 2030, we're estimating, or nationally, they're estimating that 85% of the jobs may not even have been created yet. And again, this is a pre-COVID slide. Now along comes COVID and really disruption. So it'll be interesting to see how do we support talent development. In that way, I think this work is even more urgent than ever before. When we think about talent development on the next slide, who are we trying to support? The next slide shows that when we think about talent to be developed in Louisiana, we have to have a broad tent, not just a PK through 20 exercise, not just traditional elementary students, middle school, high school, and on. We have to think about students who are the first in their family to go to college, and our foster youth, and adults in rural communities, returning adults, incarcerated or formerly incarcerated individuals, veterans. All of these populations represent talent to be developed in Louisiana, parents who are returning. So we have to really think about today's student in a much broader way. And that means our policies and our practices cannot be focused on traditional age students exclusively, because some people need an evening class, or they need access to office hours in the evening. They need short-term credentials where they can stack credentials when they have the time and money to do so. So we have to be more nimble, more flexible, more responsive to today's students. And that is also embedded in the master plan. We're very, very pleased and proud on the next slide that Moody's Investment Services has noted that the master plan would be a credit positive for the state of Louisiana. So we love education because we know education is transformational for individuals, for families, for communities, for states. And to have an external validation like this, I think really speaks to the importance of this work, the importance of education as an investment, not an expenditure to states, and a real driver when it comes to building a resilient Louisiana, a resilient economy. So very pleased with that. Of course, as you know on the next slide, we've had significant challenges with our budget. We have been a state that has one of the largest disinvestments in higher education, but we have tried to be as efficient and effective as possible. So over this decade, when dollars have been declining, we have continued to focus on improved student outcomes. We've seen more graduates, more student success, more K-12 partnerships. And I want to say how much we and the new superintendent, Cade Brumley, are very focused on dual enrollment. Having students start college in high school is a winner for students. Not just for students who are academic superstars, we need to make sure people know that dual enrollment is for every student. Whether it's career technical education or academic programs, the time to start college is in high school, and Louisiana has to push that as a statewide initiative. We also have cut positions, and we certainly, unfortunately, have seen a cost swap where before the state provided 70% of the support of what it costs to go to college. Now families are providing 68% of the support. So in a state with 1 in 5 people in poverty, we are working against our goal when we make it unaffordable to go to college, unattainable. So these are challenges that we have to continue to work on. And we want the entire state to be advocates for more education, not just higher education talking about this, but everyone talking about how important this is. The next slide really speaks to the funding trends that I have mentioned. So you see the cost shift as a graphic, if you will. The blue line are state funds, the red line are tuition and fees. And you see that inverse situation that I'm very concerned about, and I know families are concerned about as well. How do we say to individuals that the path forward is more education when people can't afford the path? And so that is the challenge that we have in our state, that we do not make prosperity something that is out of reach for families and for individuals. So we have work to do, and we're continuing to advocate for stronger support and investment for education. So that is how we think about the work, the challenge ahead of us. It was a pre-COVID big goal, ambitious goal. I know that it is even more ambitious now because, you know, over 400,000 people are unemployed. Jobs are gone. We don't know what jobs are going to come back and how fast or how they're going to come back. And so we have work to do to understand what's happening on the ground today as a result of COVID. But we know that even with all the uncertainty, one thing is certain: the importance of education, the importance of training, and the connection to employment as a result of skill building. So that's just a little bit of a high-level conversation about the work that we're very proud of. It is a state goal. It's not a higher education goal in our perspective, but obviously lots of work to do, Julie.
Yeah, well, and I can definitely say that, while I was in the legislature, I watched this swap occur.
Yes.
And, it really happened in the name largely of accountability standards in a lot of ways, because when the GRAD Act, just correct me, but what
Right.
I'm understanding is that when the GRAD Act came to be, there was an emphasis on let's get our higher education universities to adhere to these standards and these goals and benchmarks. And as they reach those goals and benchmarks, they'll be allowed to increase their tuition. Because again, we're one of only a very small number of states that allows that forces universities to go through the state legislature to change tuition.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so we allow them this chance, but then every time they receive the ability to go up on their tuition, the state government takes back their state funds. Did
That's
they
right.
have any idea that that was going to happen?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think people were committed to improving accountability. We want to be held accountable to make sure we're doing a better job. And we thought that those dollars would accelerate the work, not that it would be supplanted. And so, you keep saying do more with less, do better, do more. And the institutions have done more. And there is more that we need to continue to do. But if you don't invest in education, if you don't prioritize education, then you really can't move your people out of poverty at scale. And
Right.
so that is the work that we have to do and we have to
Mm.
commit to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one thing if you're an 18-year-old, you get out of high school and you qualify for TOPS. Then you have TOPS, so you don't have that really disproportionate to bear the responsibility for the cost of college that we set up in transitioning the cost over. It's
Right.
the person that doesn't go to school right away, that maybe
That's right.
didn't have the GPA because they didn't take things seriously until they had a family, and now they're like, I can't make minimum wage. I can't make $10 an hour. I need to do better for my family. And the opportunity cost of going to college is so great because you're not earning as much of a paycheck because you can't work two jobs and go to college.
That's
And
right.
so now tuition is also large. So the options out there, it's just a very difficult situation. So
It,
that's something I hope to see the community really support you in.
well, thank you, and I appreciate, how you have thought about this work and your knowledge of this work, because I do think it takes legislators, it takes former legislators who continue to advocate for good information to really say, this doesn't make sense. The policies and the practice are not aligned with our big goal. We're working against ourselves. Because you're right, you think about the average age of a community college student, 27 or 28. So that was the 10 years of life happening, struggles, multiple part time jobs, and now trying to go back to college to get that credential. And that was a pre COVID experience. Now people have lost their jobs, they've lost their part time jobs. So, what are we going to do now? And those are the challenges that we face that we have to take on.
Well, and it's funny because I always thought that the real challenge that would happen was driverless cars. I mean, in a lot of ways, I always thought once driverless cars really come online, 30% or 28% of the workforce is the jobs have to
Right,
do with driving.
right,
But here we are, just like in the flash of a moment, you're in a global pandemic, and it's not driving that's actually booming probably. It's
right.
actually hospitality, tourism, all those kind of things, and retail to a large degree too, that are just being crushed. And those are the jobs that are being crushed. So you just never know in this world. And so I
Yes.
think as a state, it's going to be important for us to reach that goal of that 85% that you talk about. And before we go to, I think will probably be our last question, is it possible? Is it possible to get from where we are now at 40 whatever percent you said, I can't remember if it was 45 or 48, to 85
It
in 10 years?
absolutely is. It absolutely is possible. It will take a heavy lift, and this was a pre-COVID lift, right? So we were really getting our institutions focused on this. Really proud that business leaders and others were talking about this work. It will not be easy. It will be even more challenging in a pandemic where we have a recession and a public health emergency at the same time, if you will. So I think the opportunity to get it done is harder, but the reason we have to have it is even more urgent, right? We have got to get people out of poverty. We have got to get people into credentials that allow them to continue to support their families even more now than ever. We have to help people find a path to upskill and reskill. And when we do that with a focus on all of today's students, people will prosper and our state will prosper. And that is the vision that we have. We know it's ambitious, but nothing happens if you sit back and do incremental change, right? We've been a state that has been at the bottom for too long on too many things. So now is the time for us to say no more. We're not going to accept mediocrity or being well below average. We are going to support our people. We're going to support our talent, and let's work together to make it happen.
Well, and like, I'll say, if you don't believe in any other form of lifting people up out of poverty, this is the one you should believe in.
Absolutely.
Education,
It's proven.
it's the one. I know
It's
I grew up a child of a blue collar person in a situation where we didn't have a lot, and it was that education that transformed my life. So I get it, and I hope more people will get it. And I know that one of the ways and one of the strategies that you're focused on is the goal of increasing access to dual enrollment. Really believe is important too. So could we talk a little bit about the work that's been going on between Regents and K through 12 to, create a framework for universal access to dual enrollment?
Sure. So we've been at that about a year. We've set a goal that every high school junior and senior have access to at least two dual enrollment courses at no cost to the student by the time they finish. So that's our big goal that we're working towards. As I mentioned, the new superintendent very focused on dual enrollment and supportive as well. So we are right now trying to develop a portal where everyone can see all the dual enrollment opportunities, because one of the things we have found is that everybody doesn't know about it, or they don't think it's for them because they may not see themselves as college bound. And so we have to say dual enrollment is for everyone. We have to have a financing model. We have to have a public outreach model. We have to have faculty and teachers that can offer the courses. And so that's the work that we are doing with the Department of Ed, with BESI, with the Board of Regents, Superintendents Association, School Board, Principals Association, everyone at the table. Because we just want more people to know this is a smart investment in your student to start early, and it is for everyone. So that's the work that we're excited to be doing now.
Well, and I think that just sounds like a real key to getting to that 85%. So I guess what I would ask you at this point before we say goodbye and we end this segment is, what do you need to change? What do you need to make this happen?
Well, we need everyone to believe in this vision and support it. We need no excuses, no reason to step back. We have to have urgency in this work, and people to really understand the value of education, that it is an investment, and that we are able to do this if we do it together. So I would say we need urgency, we need commitment, we need public support. Because
Yeah.
if we have those things and every family is saying to their students, young and young at heart, we can do this, then we will do it. It will happen. And Louisiana will be better as a result of it.
Yeah. In terms of like financial resources from the state, is there an appropriation that you need, or is there a particular bill that's going to help deliver this in greater numbers?
For dual enrollment, we will be coming forward with some a financing mechanism to make sure that we're blending MFP dollars and other dollars forward. For all of higher education, as you know, we're concerned about the drag on the state's economy, because higher education and healthcare are the two unprotected areas, as you well know, of the budget. So we're sort of holding our breath, right? We're receiving some CARES Act dollars. We're trying to be smart about those investments. But we are concerned that we're about to, after 2 years of stable funding, and last year was our first base increase in higher ed in 10 years, which we celebrated. And I'm very concerned that we are about to start going backwards again, because we're worried about the economy. And we're part of this, right? We're part of the solution. We're part of the challenge. When we are struggling, we struggle together. When we're prospering, we prosper together. So we get it. We know that the economy is a challenge, and this is a public health emergency, so we have to stand together. But yes, we definitely want to make sure that we continue to protect higher ed's budget so we can continue to do great things for our state.
Well, when we get together on the 28th with our group, I would really like to explore how Elevate can help in that pursuit, and whether it's, whatever we can do to get the word out. I believe and I love your 85% goal because it matches our workforce needs and it lifts our state. Anything we can do to lift Louisiana to a higher position is what we're about here. Elevating women, elevating Louisiana.
That's wonderful. I love it, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And we know that when women do well, children do well, families do well. So we're all in.
Exactly. Thank you so much. It's really been nice to get to know you today a little bit more. But that is about all the time we have for today. And I'd really like to thank you, Commissioner Reed, for being here and being part of this broadcast, which hopefully we can get out, because I want people to believe in that 85%. And I want our legislators to know that we have to make it work.
That sounds great.
So we look very forward to spending more time with you on August 28th. And for those of you that are out there, if you're interested in joining Elevate Louisiana and want to be part of the larger interactive webinar on August 28th, please contact us through social media on Facebook at Elevate LA. That's at ELLEVATELA. Or you can check out our website at the same ELLEVATELA.org. And don't forget to like and share this video as much as you can to get the word out there about the Regents' 85% goal and what we can do as a state to move that forward. I'm your host, Julie Stokes, and we'll see you next time.